But now this tag team season, it's getting down to the wire. One of these two teams, they've got to make a move tonight.
Yes, Shane Marks and Aegis Sunshine versus Alan Williams. There you go. The masquerade, which is now on June 2nd, which is a Thursday. Which I think is going to work out great for everybody. But Shane Marks, last week he showed how focused he is on this tag team season. And that can only mean bad news for the rest of the teams in the tag team season.
He's got a focus on his title match. Now flat on his back. Revelation off the ropes again. Up overhead toss. Lance Williams.
You are not going to catch the former PCW.
You have a better chance of making the National Football League than you do of making it into the WWE. Most pro wrestlers who get into it have a very unrealistic expectation, but anybody who makes it to the NFL has put in an unbelievable amount of work. Whereas pro wrestlers tend to think, I get trained, I learn how to fall down a little bit, and eventually an agent from the WWE is going to whisk me away to Clever Cleverland and I'm going to be rich and famous. That's just not the way it works. Pro wrestling started off as a con in the carnivals to steal money from people. And that element remains to this day. It's a game. I don't mind when people call it fake, because it is. It's not a competitive sport. As a wrestling fan, I hate seeing stuff that feels like it was of no consequence. So I try to make sure every PCW show feels like if you missed it, you really missed something.
Like the crowd here is no joke, and we've left them sitting there quiet on countless occasions because of what we've done in the ring. You have a term that's used in the industry called smart marks, and what that is smart wrestling fans, like who understand what's behind the scenes in the business, who understand wrestling, and those what you got right here, those are smart marks. They know a lot of these guys are new, and so what they're trying to do, they're trying to get up under their skin and make them mess up, and it's worked on me, and I've been in the game almost 10 years. I go by the Sensational Jay Fury. I've done a lot of work on the independent scenes, and in wrestling we call it the indie scenes. The first time I talked on the microphone in front of a crowd, I was shaking behind the curtain. And I went out there and I stopped shaking, but I was still nervous. We have a lot of guys now that I train, and I give them mic time in the ring and I get them ready for the crowd, and 9 times out of 10, every one of them mess up. But at the same time, if it weren't for them, my promos wouldn't have got to the point where they are now.
Marco Polo, what's a note that you've gotten after a promo or a match or whatever? A note meaning, in theater, a note would be something somebody suggested that you do differently or whatever. That's what we'd call a note. And wrestling, they probably call it something else, but who gives a shit? What's a note that you've gotten?
Like while I'm cutting a promo, put the mic closer to my mouth.
And that cause and effect is pretty obvious, right? You want to put the microphone closer to your mouth. Why?
So people can hear me.
Yep. Because if they can't hear you, what do they think?
That I'm scared or don't know
You don't
what
know
I'm
what the
doing.
fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing we have to prevent is people always have to believe you know what you're doing. And that goes for referees and everything else. They've got to think you know what you're doing.
Marco Polo, not exactly a beloved figure in PCW, but I have to admit, a very successful one so far this last month.
And now he's going from his man purse, pulling out some sort of cologne.
No, I believe that is hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer. And walk, maybe not don't want to make contact with 88.
Pro wrestling's the one place where I can come in and make a difference, and I can show wrestlers there's a different way to do things that can work, and I hope to make my mark in that way. It's a crusade for me. It's why I probably come across as crazy, and I'm always very conscious of that, that we're constantly fighting this, in my mind, war, and so I treat it as such, which is perhaps a little psychotic, because if you're a completely sane, rational person, you would be doing something else.